This is my science project on the carbon, nitrogen, phosphorus cycles. So first we're gonna watch a very, very short video. Ready?
Mm-hmm. Did you make this? You're gonna want to email this to him too. You're gonna want to email it to him too. What is your bibliography?
If you want to see it, it's very short.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So first we have the carbon cycle. So carbon is really important because it contributes to 81% of the fuel source for the US. Yep, so that would be coal, oil, natural gas, and it controls Earth's temperature, sustains life, and helps form proteins and DNA. So carbon is found in the atmosphere, biosphere, and geosphere, in areas known as sinks or reservoirs. So in the short-term cycle, which is pictured here, plants absorb the carbon dioxide from the atmosphere and convert it into carbohydrates, and then animals, when they eat the plants, absorb the energy from the carbs and release CO2 and CH4, which is methane, back into the atmosphere through waste. And when they die, when they decay, carbon is also released into the atmosphere. Also, when volcanoes erupt or fires burn, or when fossil fuels are used up, fossil fuel emissions. And then there's another part of the carbon cycle, and it's called the long-term carbon cycle. It's a cycle that creates the fossil fuels. So in this cycle, carbon is stored in a rock, formed like when a shell, like when a creature in a shell dies, the shell floats to the bottom of the ocean, and then it gets made into a rock called carbonate. And over millions of years, the carbonate breaks down, and through a series of chemical reactions, either coal, natural gas, or petroleum is formed. Or when, like in the prehistoric era, when there were swamps and marshes and forests, when they died, that rotting matter got buried under lots of dirt and sediment, and then that's why we drill, because there's coal and oil that was formed from the swamps. Okay. Next is the nitrogen cycle. So this one is a little more complicated. Starts with nitrogen fixation, which is when bacteria in the atmosphere and also algae turns the atmospheric gas into a compound that is usable for living organisms. There's also a way called an abiotic nitrogen fixation, which is without oxygen, which is with lightning, electrical equipment, and ultraviolet radiation. So after that is assimilation, when the nitrates and ammonia made by fixation are assimilated into plant tissue, which is in turn, and then the animals eat it. So then we have ammonification, when the remains and waste from organisms is decomposed and turned into NH3 and NH4 plus, or ammonia and ammonium. So after that is nitrification, when bacteria changes soil ammonia into nitrates, and then which can't be used by plants. So there's more bacteria that changes it into nitrates. Traits, which are used by plants through their roots. It's in there somewhere. And then finally, denitrification is when nitrates are metabolized by certain bacteria, which helps form new atmospheric nitrogen, and the cycle starts all over again. So nitrites aren't usable, nitrates are. Finally, we have the phosphorus
Can I pause it?
cycle. No. Why would you pause it?
Because it took you 10 minutes to find the last slide.
It's just confusing. Okay. So phosphorus isn't found.
Just trying to help.
It's really helpful. Phosphorus isn't found in the atmosphere, rarely ever, and there's a lot less of it with, like, as compared to carbon and nitrogen. The atmosphere is actually like 78% nitrogen. The rest is carbon and oxygen and other things, but no phosphorus. So phosphorus plays an important part in passage of genetic information and also in the transfer of energy. It starts in rocks and sediment, and then it's released by like weathering and erosion, and also in mining, and then it goes into the water, and plants absorb it through their roots from the water, and then animals eat the plants, and through waste and decay it returns back into the ground and then eventually into rocks. So also phosphorus is found in the deeper parts of the ocean. Actually, most of the phosphorus is found like really deep in the ocean, but it's brought up by birds and deep sea fishing. So it's a highly reactive element, so you won't find it anywhere except in a compound with a different element. So each element plays a really important part in the survival of us and our planet. Without them, we wouldn't be around. Without phosphorus, there wouldn't be such thing as genetic passage, and carbon makes up 81% of the fuel source in the US, and nitrogen makes up over 75% of the atmosphere. These two cycles are the building blocks for all life, and one of the things that make our planet so unique. How long was that? No, don't pause it.
Do you know the percentage of nitrogen in the atmosphere compared to oxygen?
Not compared to, I think it's like over 75%, and then the rest is just carbon and oxygen, and I think a couple other things, but mostly nitrogen.
Does carbon and coal play a role in natural gas?
Yeah, so carbon like makes natural gas, coal, and oil. So it's three separate things, but it just depends on what rock is buried underneath, whether it's porous or non-porous.
Oh, okay.
There's this thing called a cap rock, which seals it off.
So it would seal off the natural gas.
Yeah.
But if you don't have that cap rock, that escapes.
I guess so.
Okay.
You know.
Pretty interesting.
Yeah. Okay.
All right. Cool. So thus ends Morgan's presentation.